Hi, this is Jim Lyon, the host of the All That to Say podcast. Before you dive in today, be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can catch all of our fearless conversations. You mentioned the children working the coal mines. Mm-hmm. I've also heard you talk about the corn laws.
Yes.
Well, tell me about that. What's that about?
Well, the corn laws, I love, but also when you mentioned about the debtor's prison, the Wesleys went right out to the debtor's prison. They started paying the debt for the people to get out of the debtor's prison. And
they were essentially covering the debt so they could be free.
So they could be free and help them start businesses. But the corn laws are very fascinating because the price of grain had gone up because ale was selling so much. Mm-hmm. Now the problem also was in what were called the slums of London at that time. There was a lot of drinking, so there was a lot of drunkenness, and so women and children were desperate and all of this, and so the price of ale had gotten the price of grain had gotten so high that poor people could not buy bread because bread came from grain, of course, and they couldn't buy their bread. Now, I think in our day, we would have all organized the middle-class people, go take bread to these people. But that is not what Wesley said. No, we're going to change the law so that the poor people can buy their own bread. And so that's exactly what his followers did, and that was part of the revivals, is they lobbied the parliament and got the law changed. And so those are called the corn laws. And the price of grain went down, and poor people could buy their own bread.
And changed the whole landscape.
Changed the whole landscape. Absolutely changed the whole landscape.
You know, as we talk about Wesley, though, an outstanding figure, a fascinating character. I don't mean in a diminutive sense, but
right.
Just as an individual, his story, like few others. Jesus is the heart and soul, the reason for Christianity. How do you connect all this dynamic storytelling about Wesley to Jesus in a Wesleyan tradition?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you see that Jesus was always with the marginalized. He touched the marginalized. He was with the people. Now, he certainly was with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the power people at that time. But he began to help them see marginalized people have value. First thing that comes to my mind at this moment are the lepers. My goodness, the lepers. If you had leprosy, you had to call out ahead, leper coming, because so people get out of the way. They were one of the most despised people. And yet somehow I'm always stunned when I read the New Testament and read the story, particularly in the Gospels, that the lepers they were not intimidated to ask Jesus.
They somehow felt welcomed.
They felt welcomed. And I think about the 10 lepers that said, Jesus, heal us, heal us. I mean, they didn't say, oh, you didn't like us, or no, they shouted out because they somehow knew his love reached them in some way. And so I feel like that's very much with Wesley as well, that he certainly talked, he was an Oxford scholar. He was an Oxford Don, really.
Yes, right.
So he was a scholar, and he could speak in those levels as well. But somehow the person living in the worst slum of London knew that they were loved by Wesley, but more than that, they were loved by God.